estate or multiple real estate worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, but no cash. Cash you might need to get to get an attorney, or instead of settling for a bad attorney, get a great attorney, or maybe to get rid of squatters in the property, to secure the property. There's all kinds of possible scenarios that when you start a process, you might need some help. And so one of the tools, I would say the most valuable tool that I learned on my own and I've used to help me build my probate business has been advancing heirs' interests to help them get some cash to move the process along. I'm really excited to have today a company that does this nationally, and I've had a chance to work with a couple of times, and he was nice enough to come on our call today. Ravi Rao from InheritNow, calling us out of Chicago, Illinois. Ravi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Sure. So give me a little background. When you were a kid, most kids, when I was playing with G.I. Joes or other toys, were you dreaming of someday doing inheritance advanced work in probate cases?
Oh, not at all.
How'd you end up in that business?
Something I fell into, actually, right? So I've been, I'm not, first off, I'm not an attorney, although I work in the legal services vertical. I came from the technology side, so engineer as a background, and honestly, I could say I took a number of programming courses, right, as part of my degree, and I could say I wasn't a prolific programmer. I wouldn't say that was really my strength, but the one thing that it helped me with is kind of understand how the technologies work and how they work together with other technologies, and so I discovered that for myself, it was much better for me to talk about the technologies and explain it to folks, right, of all different stripes, whether you are a technologist or whether you're a novice or you're an attorney or something, right? In this case, real estate agents, maybe who aren't as literate, help them understand how it works better. And so that's how I fell into the kind of the business side of technology. And I'd been doing that for 20 some years. And a lot of that had been in the, what I call the legal tech vertical, right? So legal tech is a software that helps attorneys run their practices and their business. And there's two kinds of technologies for businesses, I should say attorneys, right? One is on the helping them run the business of law, and the other is on the practice of law. So, right, helping them get their invoices out and and collect the money and then post it to all the various accounts for firms of all different sizes. And then there's the practice of law, which is software that helps automate some of their work that the attorneys actually use on a daily basis, right, to make their work easier. So that's what the estate registry does, right? So we're developing software, and we're specific to a practice area, which is the trust, estate, and probate administration areas, right? So we're developing software for those, and then our firm, the executives of our firm are all attorneys, right? And they notice kind of this gap, particularly on the practice side of law for this practice area. So started building this, I want to say 2.5 years ago, and they brought me on at about a year ago to help with some of that on the development side, kind of in terms of product direction and so forth. So giving my input there, as well as getting out into the market and starting to seed the market for when we release this. The products are not officially released yet. They will be within the first 2 quarters of this year. So very exciting for us that we're finally going to be launching these. But then we also found this service opportunity, right, alongside that. When we had done our research and we talked to a lot of the state and probate attorneys, a lot of them said, hey, our cases are getting much more complex. In other words, it used to be nuclear families that where you had parents and they had assets, and they would there was a couple of kids or maybe 3 kids, and whatever assets they had rolled down to them. It was very straightforward, marriages of 50 years and what have you, right? And what, maybe just one person working or both of them working, but the assets were really confined to one area, and it was very straightforward for estate attorneys to give their counsel and help them through that process, and quite in a straightforward way. Now it's changed a lot, because now that nuclear family is not the same today. right? So there's, now you have step siblings all over the place. People have the income from their jobs, but they also have businesses on the side, or they have multiples of businesses. They establish foundations. There's several parties that have interest, right, with respect to the estate, and they all want a piece of it. So now estates they're not only more complex, they're becoming more litigious. So because of that, right, there were a number of heirs that have been coming to these probate attorneys and saying, hey, I don't want to deal with this. It's going to take forever for me to get my money. I don't want to even be involved. Can I just get my money now? Right. So that was actually where the concept of InheritNow started. And there were a few players on the market that were helping address this, but we thought we would take a real kind of a professional approach to this in terms of building a whole organizational structure for this market specifically. So, and that's what we've spent also similarly over the last 2.5 years, getting that together and building out this national brand. And so the idea being basically that we call this an advance on an inheritance. So if you have funds, or your client has funds tied up, right, in probate, they cannot get access to it, right, and they don't know when they can get access to it, but they have some needs financially. They have some immediate liquidity needs at this time, right? What we are able to do is we're able to give them advance on that inheritance. So let's just use round numbers. Let's say they have $100,000 coming to them. We'll offer here. We can give you $20,000 right now, right? And then you can collect the balance of it later. And then what we're actually doing is we're purchasing an interest in that estate, right? And so in that way, there is a premium for it. Of course, they are giving up some money to get that money, but on the flip side, what it helps them with is we do our due diligence, and we make the offer, and when they sign off on it, it's that we don't need a credit check on it, right? They don't have to pay us back. It's not a loan, right? We do the waiting and we collect at the end.
It's non-recourse. So if
it's
they
non-recourse,
end up
correct,
not getting the inheritance, they don't owe the money that's been advanced against it.
It's theirs to use for whatever it is that they need to use it for. Yeah. And quite typically, one of the use cases is, they're inheriting some property, and maybe the taxes haven't been paid, and they don't want to use their own assets to pay for that, right? So they take an advance on the inheritance, pay on taxes, make sure that, right, that's all up to date, right, for by the time they actually get it, and then they can decide if they want to live in it, sell it, or what have you.
So let me ask those of you on the line, we have about 40 people live. We have a bunch of people watching it on YouTube and Facebook Live as well. Put in the comments, if you would, if you're familiar with the concept of advancing on an inheritance. Some of you may know that I've interviewed a couple companies in this field over the last 2 years, as well as on my YouTube channel. I also have a program, getprobate.cash, that's all about this product. And Ravi represents one of the firms that I've used and worked with in that area. So I do want to talk about it in depth if most of you are not familiar with the concept. But if all you're familiar with the concept, I'd like to go deeper with what they do differently to share with you kind of some of those things, and also how they do business. So I have it's split 50-50 between a no and a yes. Have you heard of the concept before? So let's talk a little bit about the concept, and then we'll go into how you guys do it a little differently. So the concept again is it's not a loan for regulatory reasons. It's an advance or an interest in the inheritance of the party, right? Can it be just the petitioner or administrative executor? Can it be any heir that you would be interested in?
It can be any heir that has that officially has an interest in that, right? And there's some proof points that have to be there, and we know because the matter will have to be already filed in court, so there'll have to be a probate case opened. So as long as there's a probate case opened, we can see who the heirs are, right? And so we can validate the legitimacy of that request.
So case open, to be precise, would be they filed the probate, they have a case number.
That's
Maybe
right.
They don't yet have the authority, but you have to then look at the document. Your firm will look at the documents and say, okay, we're going to kind of pre-underwrite it, and it looks good to us. Or you talk to the attorney, looks good to us, and you're willing to do that. So there's a little bit of a little hurdle, which is to get the attorney to get it filed to get the case. So if somebody doesn't have the money to do that, do you kind of give a conditional approval, and the attorney then kind of on their own gets it, knowing they'll get the money back from you? How does that work?
Well, it's the attorney is actually not really involved. What I mean by that is that we the client generally finds us through just Googling, right? Advanced Inheritance Advanced Services. They find InheritNow.com. They see the web form on there. They fill it out. Okay, I'm interested. Then our operations team takes over, right? So we'll contact them. We'll do our, we'll ask them some questions. We may need a little bit of documentation, but usually not a lot, because we can find out. We have a lot of the infrastructure built that we can get that information on our own. And so we do that, and our turnaround is pretty quick. Right. So we'll do the due diligence, and we'll come back to them. And we'll say, okay, here, we'll offer you $20,000, right, advance, and we can electronically send it to you, so you have it ASAP, or we can send you a check, whatever it is, the way that you want to receive it. But yeah, they have access to the funds to do with it whatever they need to.
So they need the money to get the attorney. That's one of the most common.
That's another use case. Correct.
Okay, got it. And then, but also they could be in probate for quite a while, and just get frustrated at that point and say, well, gee, we do need an extra $10,000, $20,000 now. So they're in process at that point, right?
Correct. And when we take this use case, when I offer the 20,000, they don't have to take all 20,000. They're like, I just want to pay my attorney's fees. So here, so 5,000. So we'll advance them to 5,000. And then later on, it takes much longer. Like, oh, I got real estate tax bill came up for this property, so I'll take another 10,000. Whatever it is, right? We'll just give them a second advance.
As a company, what states do you advance in, or what states do you not advance in?
So we advance in all 50 states and Canada.
So yeah, hold on one second. So that's important. Is unlike some that are more localized, and that's how they run their business for whatever reasons. InheritNow is a national company. It's one of the reasons why I want to make the relationship with them, because they do cover all 50 states plus Canada. So that's an unusual addition. We get people on our call on Canada as well. And so the other thing I noticed is that as far as the documents, it appeared to me when I did my research that you guys kind of work with the attorneys in a way that, meaning you're not coming through the attorney, the customer is finding you directly, but you do kind of work with the attorneys more so than other companies. Explain to me kind of your relationship with the attorney then. Sure.
So, our model, and our model is evolving. So the general way, as I mentioned, folks find us is they Google us, find us, and then they submit a request. Whenever we fund or advance on an estate, then we need an attorney to file an assignment or a claim on that estate, in that jurisdiction, wherever that happens to be. So we need attorneys in all 50 states and all the provinces of Canada, right? And we need multiples of them, because it can vary. I mean, you can't have one attorney for all of California, for example, right? Huge state. So same law around the state, but different rules in each county. In each county, right? So it can vary even county to county. That's right. So we need multiples of attorneys. So we work with attorneys who will file assignments on our behalf, right? And then those attorneys that we work with there have the same issue, meaning that they're like, yeah, I have probate cases where I've got client heirs that are constantly calling me and asking, when is this going to get done? When is this done? When can I get my money? That kind of thing. And then they can refer them to us, right? And we'll do an advance. And when we actually do that advance, we remunerate, right, that attorney with what we call referral fees, right? So it's another way that they can make money. We need to pay them legal services for filing the assignment on our behalf, but then we can also remunerate with referral fees when they send us one of their clients. Gunner's a regular on our show and has his hand up. Gunner, let me see. I got you unmuted. What's going on with you? How can we help you?
Hi there. How are you doing?
Good. What's up?
Just wanted to run a quick, excuse me, scenario on an actual probate. Is that too early in the show?
No, anytime you want to do it.
Okay.
You're regular enough where if you think it's time, it's time.
So here's the scenario. One lady who is a first cousin that lives in Atlanta. The property's here locally, and we did the probate, got it all approved, just doing it pro per, and got it all approved, got it on the contract, and ready to close. There are, let me see, there were 6 first cousins, only 2 that are alive. So equal shares to those 2.
Okay.
If the other ones did not have any children. Like a week before closing, an attorney shows up out of the blue with, let me see, so we got the right number here, with so 2 out of those 4 deceased first cousin had 3 kids each. Now we're ending up with 8 shares instead of 2. So if this lady in the first would have taken out a sizable number, what then?
So I think this question, Robbie, and I think I know the answer, I'll set you up, is if it turns out that they got advanced thinking they're getting half of the estate,
yeah,
but it turns out they're really going to get maybe, in this case, 1/6. Well, it's not, the cousins split, the second cousins get split the one cousin's portion.
Correct. Yeah.
But even if it was 20, turns out they get 1/20th. If it turns out that that doesn't cover all of the return to the advance, what happens, Ravi? And I think we covered that, is it's not recourse. That's becomes your company's problem, right?
It becomes our fault. Yeah, our not fault, but our issue, right? Not the client.
Yeah.
So this kind of thing happens all the time, as a matter of fact, and this just drags out the probate process, right? It takes so much longer. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, somebody will come in and say, "Hey, I have rights to this in this estate as well." So, when we do it, we look at the estate and and what we think is owed to that heir at the time, right? And in general, right, it's never, if someone has 100,000 coming to them, we're not going to advance them 100,000, right?
Sure.
That it tends to be in the 20 to 40% range, and we wouldn't do any more, whether, right, on that estate, whether it was 2 parties or 8 parties, right, or whatever number of parties. So
it typically is being less in California, in that we have bigger estates, and I've just noticed that the minimum estates can be 500. If there's real estate involved, $500,000 are up most commonly, and customers seem to only take $10,000-$20,000 at the most commonly.
That's right. Yeah, we rarely, even in large estates, we rarely see advances that are requested that are greater than a couple 100,000, 2, 3, some are, those would be among the biggest, right? That we've seen a request for.
So a quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
On the non-recourse, does that end, or could it be affected, the non-recourse, by the due diligence done by, for instance, this person now that did it proper by yourself? The diligence to search for heirs.
Yeah, no, it can definitely be affected by that. For us, it's kind of a risk tolerance.
Sure.
That we're looking at when we're looking at the case. We're looking at the assets, and what are the mix of assets? How much is cash versus property versus something else, right? Yeah. Business valuation or whatever may be going on in the estate. So we look at a mix of those things, and then we have an algorithm where we say, okay, based on that, we see that we can, as the estate as a whole, we can only do this much, and for this heir, we can only do this much, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the county of Riverside in California, for instance, they only require a pro per or a pro sec to do 2 internet searches from 2 specific internet sites that are named in the probate code, the addendums for Riverside, which is usually not enough. Because this particular attorney, this was in Riverside, and they found all these kids which did not show up on those 2 searches that you're mandated to do by the court.
Interesting.
There's a whole industry. So sometimes these LA doesn't have that same specific rule. The standard is they have to make a reasonable effort, and then convince the judge they made a reasonable effort. And what does that
Right.
mean? And everyone's a little different. So I've seen judges ask questions. Do you do this? Do you do that? So there are firms that will do a search and then write back a letter to the court saying, we did a search, we're professionals, this is what we do, we didn't find anybody. Of course, they're looking for errors, because if they find an error, they're going to say to the heir, hey, there's an estate that you have a portion in, and we like to represent you and get paid a percentage of that. And
Yep.
people do that. So there's like this competing interest where the pro se has to order the search, but they're hoping beyond hope that nobody shows up, because
Right.
somebody does. It changes the numbers.
And it's not inexpensive at all to do that search either. I've seen up to $3,000 per search.
Can be.
Sure.
Well, it's not even the search. It's also the letter
The whole
back to
thing.
the court
Yeah, correct.
from an entity that the court is going to accept, that becomes important.
But there's also a lot of these, a lot of the attorneys, right? They're required to do an ancestry search, right? So before they actually file the case, so they can, and it's very common. I see them at conferences all the time. Folks
Yeah.
that that's there's firms that do this on their behalf, right? So the attorneys pay these firms, and the firms go out and do a deep search and come back with here's all the rightful heirs for that.
Mhm.
So so that's how they do their due diligence, and they're supposed to do it, right?
Right.
It's a big problem for the attorney if it comes back. I mean, think about the client satisfaction side. If they think there's 2 heirs, and then all of a sudden, right, there's so many
It's
more.
6, I know.
It's
It's a little shocker for her. That's
Sure.
for sure.
Can be. Gunnar, thank you so much, as always.
All right, you're welcome.
Okay, so a couple questions we have in the chat box as well. Let me kind of knock some of those out if I can. One is, has anybody bought an heir's interest in a Florida estate? Ravi, I know you operate or would consider in Florida. Of course, it's like anything else. You want as much business as you can.
Yeah.
Have you guys purchased an heir's estate in Florida yet?
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the big states we've done, like, for sure, right? Meaning California, Illinois, New York, Florida, Texas, right? 100%. There's some that we've not done zero in, right?
Yeah.
Arkansas.
The product I know is good in Florida, in that 2 of your competitors are based in Florida that I've worked with as well. So I do know Florida is a very active probate state, and also these probate airships. Now, only California is regulated in that you are obligated to file in the probate case a notice of your purchase of the interest. So all parties are going to know this has gone on. And what happens in California is, one heir will file with you guys, and another one will go, what? You got $20,000? Heck, I like that. Your name and number's on there. They're going to call it. That must be a source of business for you guys.
Yeah, no, we've had a number of that exact use case come up, where we've had one heir reach out to us, and then later on 4 heirs will come to us for a all have different reasons for doing it. But yeah, if because one heir, sometimes it's not litigious, it's just that they need some money now for whatever the reason is, right? So they'll tell their siblings, and pretty soon we have every sibling that's applying for an advance.
Nice.
So this is where, like I said, we look at the estate as a whole and how much would we be willing to do, right? And then for each of the heirs, determine how much we'd be willing to give.
So I see one of the questions in the chat box on the Facebook is for Robbie, contact information. So I put that in the chat box, the link to the website InheritNow, and the phone number is 877-846-4374. So you can go, and you actually go right to the website and get started, fill out questionnaires. And also, you guys have a program. Now, I do this. This is an interesting one. In some regards, it kind of competes with what I do, but it's not about me. It's about helping customers. I found you because my goal was to reach out to all the companies in this business, establish kind of a wholesale relationship where I would package it up and bring it to them. Mm-hmm. But you do offer that if a party, if a real estate agent or an attorney wanted to do these with you regularly, you would offer them a commission or even an affiliate program that you would consider adding them into. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So, this real estate probate world, right? Specifically that, Bill, you introduced us to, is new for us. Day to day, I'm basically talking to attorneys. That's what I do. Either on the filing side or on the referral side, whatever it is. I'm talking about attorneys about this and our other products. The real estate side, I find to be very interesting for a number of reasons. Like what I'm trying to do as a whole for the estate registry is I'm trying to get more of these probate attorneys and trust and estate attorneys to think more from a relationship standpoint as opposed to transactionally.
Correct.
Right. And probate attorneys are tend to be very transactional, right? They just, they right, cookie cutter, they want to do this over and over again, but not necessarily build relationships. And, I'm trying to convince them to think more like business people, right? And take the time and build the relationships with their clients, and it'll pay off even more. Right. And this is something that's, I think, very natural to your market. To real estate right. Are business people, are very relationship oriented, right? And they work with their clients over and over and over again, and with the eventual outcome of hopefully, right, then there's a property that you buy or sell, and then that's when you make your money. And so I'm looking for partners that that want to have that relationship with that client and want to have that relationship with us. Right. And help them, and in turn they help us. And if we can solve a problem that one of your clients have with respect to needing cash, whether it's for a down payment on a home or back taxes or whatever it is, right, that then they can use to kind of help you by saying, okay, well, now I have the money to fix up the home for sale or pay the back taxes or whatever it is, right? Then maybe it'll help push forward, right? The sale of the property, right? Which I think is what most of the folks online are interested in.
And I feel the same way. I'm trying to build relationships. So, I brought Ravi on. I got approved as affiliate with his company, and we're starting that relationship. I've worked with 4 or 5 such companies in my experience. I like them for a number of reasons, but I also like controlling the transaction. So I rather work with them on a wholesale basis where customer comes to me, I take it to them, get it pre-approved, and then take the file. But if you want to be an affiliate, talk to them about, sending them business and getting, commissions on the website, or reach out to Ravi, and they're looking to add real estate agents in different markets. And so feel free to pursue that. If you don't want to take on all the extra work or the process of a contract and all that, I'm glad to work with you on that. Just know that we can service you. And Ravi represents one of the companies that would help your customers. And they're in all 50 states plus Canada. And we're glad. And I think also the UK, you guys are entering into, if I remember correctly.
That's right. So, we're just now entering the UK market. Correct. Yeah. That's new.
So that's something we can add as well. Christopher, who's a regular on our call, asked a question because he was, and this is common. He was speaking with 2 Florida attorneys, and they were not familiar with the errors assigning their interest. Can you do an advance or assign the interest in the state of Florida? The answer is yes. And I think, so here's what I'd like to ask you more. I'd like to rephrase Christopher's question because I know the answer is yes. I know that I got invited to speak to a group of attorneys in Arizona, and they thought I had invented fire when I talked about this. Now, the reality is not enough of them do enough cases to do one to go through the process. It's a numbers game like anything else. So my question to you is it true that many times attorneys aren't familiar with this process or have a negative association for some unknown reason, and then you need to kind of sell them on your service and your company being legitimate and how they can work together? Is that part of the job, or is that part of your process?
That is definitely part of the, and both of those scenarios are true. There's a number of attorneys that have never heard of this inheritance advance service, so they've never, and their clients had not heard of it either. It's still not that well known, right, as an offering. So there's that side of it, and then there's the other side of it where I've had attorneys accuse me of being a loan shark. Right. So, you're taking advantage of people by doing this, they're giving away, on a $5,000 advance, we may charge $2,500, right? Collect $7,500 at the end, which is, they look at, it's 50% interest. This is like a loan shark would do. Right. And, we're saying, look, we're here to help. If these folks could wait the entire time, right? To probate closes in a year, year and a half, or however long it takes. Then
3 years, 4 years,
well,
5 years.
right. If they can do that, right? Or if their credit's really good and they get a loan for that, right, to cover it, and maybe that's more like 10% or whatever it is, right? They can do that. And sometimes the attorneys, if there's a lot of significant cash there, can do what's called a partial distribution. So they can actually, if there's $2 million of cash and you need, 5,000, 10,000, yeah, here you go, right? They'll do a partial distribution. They can just trade away, and that costs nothing. Right. So they do have other mechanisms that are available to them. But in the case that they don't, right, that's the gap what we're trying to fill.
Right. And again, it's not for everybody, but for people who need it, they need it. And that's the thing I try to explain. Also, to make a comparison to interest on a loan isn't fair because they have way higher costs, like filing notices, like tracking in court, like maybe having to appear if there's an issue. So it's a different business than lending a credit card at 10% interest or 20% interest. Question that Christopher asked as a follow-up is, why would you provide an advance versus buying the entire heirs interest? Now, there are businesses, for example, when you have a lawsuit and you might get a $4 million judgment, but they might pay that, say, $200,000 a year for 20 years. Well, it's not worth $4 million cash. It's paid over time. And there are companies that will buy that and give that person a higher cash settlement at close. That's not your business model. I do know there are advanced companies who are from that industry. Do you on occasion buy an entire interest, or are you merely advancing the heir and looking to work with the heir?
So here's how I'll answer that. It's the latter, right? Which is looking to advance the heir. Now, having said that, our firm is always open to solving problems that other people are not looking at, right? So if we see that there's an opportunity here that, where we buy out the entire property, right, on behalf of the heir, and there's a way for us to recoup our funds that way, we're open to hearing how we might be able to make that work. I'll give you an example of something that one of the attorneys came to us and said. They said, "Hey, we often do our work with our clients under a deferred fee arrangement. That means we don't get paid as an attorney until it closes, right? So again, a year and a half, 2 years, we may be out, right? We're doing work for them every month, every week, whatever it is, hours and hours and hours rolling up of our time, not getting any money at all. And then, finally 2 years from now, we get paid out. And this is a premium for that. It's called a deferred fee arrangement. But I've got to carry that load all through that time. Could you advance, right, on my deferred fee arrangement? So I can have some of that money now to help pay off some of the bills, right? So that's something we're taking a strong look at. If there's something similar on the real estate side, right, it takes a little different due diligence there. With the attorneys, we usually have a relationship with. On the real estate, we don't have a relationship with the client or the estate specifically, right? So our relationship would actually come through you, and we'd have to know a lot about the property and that kind of thing. We've not seen it. We don't know if there's squatters. Exactly.
Glad to help.
So if there's a potential business model here, we're certainly open to exploring it.
Got it. So Tony Johnson asks to understand that the advancement has for something when there's a fee that the attorney's paid and tax. Well, Tony, it could be paying attorney's fees, as Ravi mentioned, it could be paying taxes. I've had people advance money to put a fence around the property, to hire an eviction attorney to get a squatter out, to put in security cameras, internet to fix the property up.
Yep.
People use it for all kinds of things. And they may say they're going to use it for one thing and use it for something else. I'm sure there are people who tell you they're going to use the money for an attorney, and maybe they filed the probate. They tell you they're going to do an eviction and they take the money and misspend it. It must happen. That's part of life, right? I mean, we're dealing with human beings here. We're not dealing with machines. James asked, what's the premium? And so I think the answer is probably going to be, it varies on the cases, but what's the most common? And then maybe what's the range look like?
Yeah, the range looks like, actually, we've had some that are as little as 15%, right? And then on the maximum side, probably 60%, somewhere about there.
Okay.
Is what I'd say the range is. And if and as part of the advance agreement the client signs off on, we've got some time frames on there. If it happens to close quickly, for the maybe we charge 30%, and if it closes quickly, we'll remunerate back to the client half of that, 15%. So our take would only be 15%, right? So there's clauses like that in the agreements as well.
I've seen that. Okay, good. Sam's on our call. What do you expect in return for the state to pay you? How do you secure they're going to pay you when they purchase the property? I think the answer, at least in California, is they're not going to get paid anything until the probate distributes, and you are basically like another heir, where when the probate gets settled, they have to pay you to close the probate, and they can't get paid themselves until they pay out all the heirs at the same time, right?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we become an heir on the estate effectively.
Okay, and then we got some other questions on Facebook. Sam Silverman, thanks for joining us. So he asked what the language is to secure position. Not every probate attorney is knowledgeable. The truth is, you guys prepare the documents. Really, the attorney is not creating the document for the assignment of the interest. You're merely asking the attorney to file the document so that everybody's noticed. Correct?
That's right. Yeah.
So it's just really simple. All they're doing is following the notice that these things were done. So all the attorneys don't have to file the documents. It's not really that they're creating the document. They're just filing the notice with all the parts. And then Sam asked, what if the only interest is the right to purchase the property? So if you think about that, that is really of no cash value to the estate. They might buy it cheap and then flip it and make a profit, which is good for them. But that's not going to be an inheritance event. That's going to be financing a flipper type deal, a little different situation, I think, right?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, they would have to be the heir on the property, right, for us to be able to advance it.
Well, their heirship could be the right to buy a property, but there's no cash value in the estate of that. That's just that's the value that goes to the heir separately. So that would be a problem, I think, at some point.
Correct.
Okay, I think I caught up with all the questions so far for no interest or like. I think I have all the questions in there, and then he's asking about in New York, Florida, and Massachusetts. Do you guys? Is Massachusetts? I know there's probate there. There's estate planning there. Is that any special notes about any special experience you have in Massachusetts by chance?
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, I know we've done advances in Massachusetts, another one fairly what we consider a large state, and and probate there is not as regulated as California, but it is still. Yeah, nothing is, but really, right? There is a lot of rules, and specifically with respect, and even on inheritance advances, right? There's a very structured way in how this needs to work, and we have attorneys, right, that work there and that file on our behalf. So we've probably done at least a dozen so far, in the state of Massachusetts. Some with property, some without.
So for those of you listening, to kind of recap, and I have done some research in this. California is the only state that regulates this business of probate advances. There was some talk and interest in more heavy regulation, and their attorneys were grumbling it was a high interest rate. But I think at the end of the day, it turns out it's not that much of an interest rate, and California didn't pursue it. In fact, there was one particular professor of law who had wrote a series of law review articles that started generating this interest. And I've interviewed him on my YouTube channel. He's actually moved on because he didn't see any fruit coming from this. The positive was California does require the filing of these. And then companies like Ravi's saw that go, wow, that not only is that good for the consumer, that's good for us because it might generate new business. We file the notice and all the other heirs see it as a way to get some business. So you guys follow kind of California guidelines, even though it's not required in other states, as kind of best practice, I guess.
Correct, because we know that if we meet the California guidelines, we would meet all the other states, right?
And I'm sure that says something good about California. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure it is.
Well, it's something like when you take data privacy protection, like GDPR, right, which is established in the EU, right? If we abide by that legislation, then we know we've covered it for the entire world. Right, wherever, right, we're managing or controlling, client data. or
And that's
end
why we
user
do that in
data.
California. That's why we try to
Right.
pass those laws. Okay, so let's change hats a little bit now, because I think I've caught up to data on the product. And again, if you're interested in the service, contact Ravi if you want to be an affiliate. If you're not sure you really get that involved in it, but you have a case, I'm glad to play that role with you and be the intermediary and bring the business to Ravi's firm as a wholesale. Getprobate.cash is a program I do every Wednesday morning, 8:30 a.m. Pacific time, to talk about the product and to help people who are interested in that. So feel free to either come to them directly. I'm sure he'd love to talk to you about being an affiliate. Those of you who don't want to go that far, but have one case that you want to take care of a customer, reach out to me and I'm more glad to help package that up for you. Let's change hats a little bit, because a lot of people in this call are real estate agents who are trying to do business with more attorneys like you do. They're not going to offer money like you are. They're offering services to work with attorneys. So along the way, what do you find, if anything, different on building business relationship with attorneys than you have in your other kind of business sense? You said you came from software, and I know there's a sales and business development in other areas. How would you describe the business of building relationship with attorneys?
Painful. uh, for a number
I
of
didn't put the words in your
reasons.
mouth. I just asked the question. So
Yeah, it's having come from the software world and work and basically selling or marketing this into law firms, right? It's hard to tell an attorney what to do, because they're the smartest guy in the room, and then at the same time, right, they have some fundamental lack of understanding of how the technology works, right? But
and that's the yin and the yang, right?
Yeah, correct. So there's a little bit of playing up to their ego that I have to do, right? But at the same time, help them discover the right path when it comes to leveraging the technologies and services. I can't just tell them. I have to kind of have them discover it. So there's some nuance there in how I work with them. But you're absolutely right.
Whoa! I didn't say anything. I asked you the question.
No. I guess you're right. This is more on my side, right? I think
this is on the internet. You're not going to get me to say it.
Yeah. Well, I think attorneys, if they heard this, would a lot of them who know me would laugh and would generally agree that they're a tough bunch to work with. But when you do have that relationship with them, right, and that trust is there, they have this culture of being a trusted advisor for their clients, right? I mean, people don't change their attorneys over like they change other things, right? You get a new attorney every year, right? The attorneys know where the bodies are buried, right? It's a close relationship that you have with them, so you generally stick with them for a lifetime. So once they have that same, so they're used to that relationship. If they allow you to become a trusted advisor for them, then you're in, right? You're in for good. And they'll always come back and purchase from you more or work with you more. So if you all had, some attorneys to work with, right, in your area, right, where you buy and sell properties, and they like you and they work with you and they get to know you, then every time this comes up, they'll keep feeding you clients. So it could come back around that way as well.
It's hard to break through, but once you break through, it's very valuable.
That's it.
And I think the thing about attorneys that you said those two things. I'm quoting you now, which is they're the smartest person in the room, but oftentimes there's gaps in their knowledge, and this being one of them.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the universal truths about attorneys is there's no group that sounds more knowledgeable when they're speaking about something they know nothing about. There's something about being an attorney on the spot, and you get asked questions, and maybe it's cross-examination or the nature of the business or something. All politicians, I should say 99% of all politicians are attorneys. That's why they speak authoritatively and know nothing at all about what they're talking about. But I think you hit on the head that when you show you're worthy of their trust, they open up a bit, that's where the real opportunity is. And so there's no group that makes more fun of themselves more than attorneys. Attorneys love attorney jokes. Now they know all the attorney jokes, so you got to find a good one, a new one to trick them. But they like making fun of themselves as much as anybody. So that's the yin and the yang of the relationship, right? It's hard to get in there, but once you do, they don't make relationships with everybody, so you have a chance to do business with them.
Right. They likewise only have a few trusted advisors. Right.
What do you do once you kind of crack the nut and do a deal with them? Of course, your business is a volume business by its nature, but it's also somewhat relationship built. And I have to say, what attracted me, for those who are on the call, what attracted me was when I did my research and found who his firm was here in LA, he was working with some of the best probate attorneys in the city. None of them were not good, and they all were really, really good. So I said, wow, I need to find out who these guys are. And I spoke with him and his associate in the company as well a couple of times. So what do you do once you get a relationship, once you've opened that door, once you've done a deal with them? What do you do to keep that relationship going? What kind of ongoing, if anything, activities do you have in your business to keep those relationships going?
Yeah, and I think that's that's one of the challenges that we have, because I'm the only one that's doing it for this particular vertical in our company. We have someone that works with wealth advisors, right, and we have someone who works in the funeral home businesses, because they know who's died, right? They also right aware of who's died and who may need an advance. So we have kind of seasoned folks in each of these verticals. So I'm sorry, I lost track of the question.
Well, what do you do to keep in touch with them? So
keep
how
in
do you
touch with them.
maintain the relationship?
Yeah. So some of it is.
I mean, we all need to do more, right? I mean, I'm not.
Right.
I don't expect to be perfect. Every realtor on this call. Let me just ask real quick: which realtors on this call has a perfect stay in touch with the past client program? I'm just curious. No, none of us do. We always have to work on it, be better at it, create more value for our customers. So I appreciate it's not perfect, but can you give me a couple highlights, or maybe let me re-ask the question. If you had a family member or friend getting into real estate and they wanted to build their business on referrals from attorneys, what would you recommend for a real estate agent who wanted to build those relationships and maintain those relationships?
With an attorney, yeah.
With an attorney specifically.
Yeah. I mean, you would have to, that, like I said, it's tough. It's tough getting in there. And the best way to get in there would be to go through someone who is your partner and their partner also. So for example, if I'm a partner of one of the real estate agents here on the call, right, and they need a real estate attorney that they want to work with, right, I might be able to then direct them to the attorneys that we work with and say, hey, here's an attorney, right, that you should work with. I've worked with them. I know them, that kind of thing, because I already have a trusted relationship with the attorney. I have a trusted relationship with you, the real estate agent. So it's a natural to bring it together, whether they might have a client for you, or you might have a client that has a need for an estate attorney. So both ways, right? So I think, that's where that's part of the value that we can add. I mean, we're building out a network here. This concept on the real estate side, it's new to us. We've not actually spent a lot of time talking or thinking about it. But yeah, I mean, I would say that would be the way to do it. In general, though, with what you're talking about, we have a pretty sophisticated CRM program, customer relationship management program, called Salesforce.com.
Oh, I use.
So okay, so a number of you may also use it. So within that, there's a lot of capability. So for our filing partners and for our referral partners, this thing is churning out, right, and sending them relevant information about new products and services and offerings that we have, updates on regulations, right? When it comes to estate planning, trust and probate administration, white papers that we develop, the legal case for digital vault or debt security registration, all this kind of stuff. Just to keep us in the forefront and help them, realize that, hey, these guys are subject matter experts in this area, right? So this system kicks it out, on my behalf. It always has my Calendly link in there that says, okay, schedule a time to discuss, please, pick a time on my calendar. And I tell the attorneys to do the same thing, right? When it comes to business development, I tell them the same thing. You want to maintain relationships with your clients. You don't have the time to pick up the phone or type out emails and do this, right? Because you don't make any money when you do it that way. That's what technology is for, right? Is to automate all of this stuff. And there's never been a better time than now. There's so many ways to get in touch with people, right?
Such as
That
videos like this.
such as things like this, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm talking about regular communications,
Mhm.
whether it's in the form of automated emails or text links or mobile applications or mobile friendly websites. If you have a website that a lot of the younger generation, that's all they do. They don't actually they don't go on their computer other than to stream Netflix. They're looking at their mobile phone all the time. So you have to have something that loads very easily and they can see it very easily, right? Chat bots on your website, right? So that they love chatbots. Those things are very popular now. So all kinds of things. There's AI tools also that can help in this area.
So Tony asked a question, and I think this question shows the mistaken thought process that most realtors have, because we tend to think transactionally. And I don't mean to call you out, Tony, but let's all learn from this question, which is, do you have attorneys in all states that you have attorneys in all states you have a relationship with, or I think he's asking you have relationships with them wherever you do business. Think about the question though. Every time that they do an advance, either it's a pro se or pro per, but if not, there's an attorney involved that either has no relationship with them that he wants to create, or he has a relationship he wants to deepen. And I think for us as real estate agents, we miss that every single transaction, in addition to being a transaction, is the opportunity for a relationship, right? I got to think anytime you guys have a client in a new area with a new attorney, that becomes for you a new opportunity for lead generation of new relationships, right?
Absolutely, 100%. So when we use our attorney to file a claim on an assignment, right? The estate's attorney will receive that, right? And then okay, there's funds that are due, right, when probate closes, and now and they can see, they can see all the numbers. Here's how much that was advanced, and here's how much we're going to be remunerated at the end, and so they go, wow, okay, can I get a piece of this? Right. Exactly. So that's a way a lot of my relationships have come, actually, are through folks that, right, estate attorneys who have received an assignment on our behalf.
Right. So it may be a relationship yet, but you're hoping to make it a relationship.
Make it a relationship. Correct.
The purpose of it. Okay. So look, this is participative. A bunch of you are on the call. Love to have you ask questions if you haven't had the chance yet. But real quick, I just want to point out a couple free resources. I guess all the time, how do I build my business in probate real estate? How do I launch from scratch, or how do I add probate to my current business or to expand my business? And I always tell people it's a journey and a process, not a destination. There's no one class, no one activity. It's a series of things. And towards that, and I don't really sell coaching. I do something through Probate Mastery kind of on the side, but I'm not a coach selling you coaching. I'm not selling you data. I'm a colleague. I want you to be successful. I want us all to work together and do more business with these vendors so that when you or I have a deal, we get better service than the competition. That's my goal in having this call. Towards that end, two things you should be aware of. One is I have a free probate group anybody can join within Facebook called Probate Experts. And go in there and join. Love to have you. But you know what amazes me is we regularly get people who go in there and say, I'm a family in Houston. I'm a family in Phoenix, Arizona. And if you look through that, you'll see questions from different families looking. Now you see my content posted as well. But there are people who are going to post looking for help, looking for leads, basically. And either they need a real estate agent or they need an attorney. So feel free to participate there. The second is we do this every week. And I also have other content on my website. You can go to probateweekly.com is this event to register live to come on the YouTube channel. I'd love to have you come in live and participate live. You also can watch it, live stream it on the YouTube if you want to. You go to episodes.probateweekly.com and that will take you to the playlist we have of all the past episodes, and you'll see them there. And if you look at my channel overall, you'll see other opportunities to learn and grow the probate business. So again, those are free resources. Love to have you participate. Third free opportunity is on this call. Feel free, so if you have already, put in your name, your contact info, what area you work, try to narrow it down. Let's do some referrals with each other. I literally have looked for outbound referrals in the last month or two. I got paid on one in Michigan and Detroit, and I had to look for outbound referrals in Houston, and I did prior to that, Virginia, Maryland. So anyhow, put your information in. Love to work with you. Love to work with people who are working with us to be successful together. Okay, so those of you on the YouTube, this is a chance. Ask questions. No stupid question. I already cleared that with Ravi. If you're here and you have a question, I know there's somebody else who doesn't have the courage to ask a question. Feel free to raise your hand or put in the chat box, and I am glad to reach out to you. Ravi put his contact info and his email as well into the chat box.
Yeah, I just put my email in there just to make sure. So the easy way to connect with me, reach out to me, and then we can schedule a time to talk.
Fantastic. Any other questions for Ravi or me as far as how we can help you with your business? I also checked on the Facebook, and I think we're all caught up there as well. Let me just give it one last call.
Hopefully the concept has made sense, right? And the use cases and where it would be appropriate, and but certainly open to answering more.
Yeah, and again, I would say more. If not, I do the weekly program, getprobate.cash, not .com, but get.cash. And if you go there, you can sign up and register for it. I do that every Wednesday at 8:30, where we go into this product. I'll explain it over, give you an overview on it. I do offer a coaching product there if you want to be an affiliate with me. Now, Ravi doesn't charge anything to be an affiliate, which is great. And I'm fine with you doing it either way. I'd like to work with some of you. Some of you don't want to work with me. That's okay. I don't really take that personal. So feel free, though. You can learn for free if you want. Every Wednesday, it's 30 minutes of content on how to use Probate Advances as a tool to help you help your attorneys build their business, to help your investors and wholesalers get deals closed, and help the families get the best outcome. I don't see any other questions. We're kind of up at the end of the hour anyhow. So Ravi, I just want to, on behalf of everybody here, thank you for taking the time today, sharing what you do, offering the ability to reach out to you. I really do appreciate it. Thank you for you and on behalf of your team as well. And InheritNow, I appreciate the time you spent today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Nice meeting all of you.
My pleasure. And for the rest of you, again, this is probateweekly.com. We do it every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We live stream it into YouTube and Facebook. Feel free, if you're watching it after the fact, feel free to subscribe. You'll get it regularly. If you have questions, I check the comments as well. Feel free to put questions in there. I'm Bill Gross. You can find me on social media at Bill Gross EXP. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic week.